Okay, I think we can set to go. Niranga, can you confirm?
Yes, we can go now.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope, I think some of the participants are still joining, and we have a seventh webinar series on Eyes on the Storm as part of the Advancing Early Warning for All. And this segment is collaborated with a number of partners, which Niranga will share the second screen now. I would happen to share the welcoming remarks on from the ground up, the community-led early warning for local resilience. And so this is an important segment where we have been advocating on the importance of advancing early warning for all. And today we have well-known experts talking about the bottom-up principles and how community early warning would be an important segment to focus on and learn from the experts and also from the participants joining around the world. So if I just speak on specifically from the opening segment, as we have in the past looked at more on the principles and the framework of advocating the importance of early warning for all from the UN Secretary General, it is not to forget the importance of how bottom-up challenges are equally important and what collective missions we need to drive and promote more people-centered resilience in the face of growing risk. It's also very important. We have seen a very encouraging sign of various global initiatives, whether we call anticipatory action or REAP partnership, risk informed early action partnership, cruise initiatives from the World Bank. Number of other donors are moving away from the purely the top-down approach to more integrated community-driven systems. And it's also very clear from these initiatives and impact, communities are not merely recipients of aid. They are the knowledge holders, first responders, and often the most invested stakeholders when it comes to protecting lives and livelihood. So the community early warning session we are advocating today brings in a lot of local knowledge from the partners and the experts who are going to speak, how they are able to strengthen the social capital of advocating early action plan, empowering individuals to take timely and informed action. We have done some great work with a number of partners who are joining today. And also, I think we are realizing there is a need of integrated thinking of biophysical, the weather forecast coming from the computer-based information and the indigenous knowledge. You will be hearing from our experts today. At IWMI, through this global collaborations, through the climate action program, we see how we can design community-led design process on the early warning systems. So today's discussion is especially crucial, in my opinion, as we aim to leave no one behind. We ensure that early warning, early action reaches the last mile, which is inclusive of a marginalized group, women, youth, and indigenous population. So I look forward to hearing inspiring experiences and practical insights from our distinguished speaker, panelists, and participants today. So thanks once again for joining us, and I wish you all a fruitful and engaging discussions. So prior, Dr. Neera Pradhan from ECMOD is going to speak. I would give the short introduction to make sure you are all aware of Dr. Neera's capabilities and the experiences she brings to this important webinar. She is a senior water and adaptation specialist and cryosphere and water lead at ECMOD, is an intergovernmental organization working for the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region. With over 20 years of her experiences in disaster risk resilience, river basin management, and freshwater conservation, she has also worked prior joining ECMOD with WWF Nepal and IUCN. So without further delay, let me invite Dr. Neera Pradhan to deliver her opening presentation. Over to you, Dr. Neera.
Thank you very much, Giriraj. May I request, let me just share my screen for presentation. Please let me know if you can see the screen.
I can see, make it full screen.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Giriraj, for that introduction. And it is my pleasure to present about what ECMOD has done on community-based flood early warning system. Let me first give a general perspective of what ICIMOD is working, where ICIMOD is working in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, not only because I want to introduce where we are working, but also because this region is very much prone to disasters and hazards in this region. As you can see here, we are the source of 10 major Asian rivers in this region. We are very rich in high biodiversity, as you can see here. We also have rich culture in this region, and we are one of the largest reserves of ice outside the two polar regions. That is why we are also known as the third pole in this region, providing livelihood, and water to millions of people in the Hindu Kush and also downstream, depending upon this region. However, we are rich in different resources, but we also face the quadruple crisis in this region. The crisis due to climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and the demographic changes in this region. We are also vulnerable because we are warming 2 times faster than the global warming rate. As you can see here, this is the study done by ICCI, and it shows how vulnerable we are in this region. And when we are talking about 1.5 degree, our region is more vulnerable because we are warming not only rapid, but because of the high elevation. Again, the warming rate is high here. If you look at the days and nights getting warmer, you can see that there is an increasing occurrence of extreme warm days and nights, but also decreasing occurrence of extreme cold days and nights in our region. And why I am bringing all this context is it is impacting the communities and the people in our region. While we are talking about 1.5 degree, the climate crisis is already there, and WMO has already predicted that in 2023, they predicted that in the upcoming 5 years, we will breach this 1.5 degree. And we have been seeing the warmer days, warmer nights in our region very much coming. So this will have major impact on water resources. In some cases, there will be too much water, whereas in other cases, there will also be too little water. And we are already talking about the peak water. In 2050, it is predicted that the peak water will reach, whereas, like from warming, getting too much water will get cooling too little water in this region. Some of the examples of the floods in our region is the Bangladesh flood in 2024. Many people died and millions of people affected in this region. Then moving quickly to Bhutan, again in 2024, again, the similar disaster happened, and monsoon has exceptionally severe, causing flash floods in this region, and also bringing in landslides and disrupting water supply, damaging crops, and impacting the communities at the local level. Again, the very important event in the Everest region, the Thame flood in 2024 in Nepal. Again, it brought devastating damages to the communities, to the major hydropowers and infrastructure, and also the ecosystem. All this is important because we are talking about not only the single hazard, like the floods or the droughts upcoming or the landslides, but in our region, we are also facing multiple hazards, multi-hazards. That is, it's bringing compounding impacts, cascading impacts in our region. That's why when we are talking about early warnings, it's time for us to think about multi-hazard risks and multi-hazard early warnings. And we are trying to come out with a multi-hazard risk assessment framework. I will not go into detail, it is in making, but I just wanted to let you know that we have to think about multi-hazard risks in our region when we are even talking about early warnings at the local level, at the community level. Also, in addition to that, the IPCC report already tells that the climate change will bring unprecedented extremes like larger magnitude of extreme events, increased in frequency. We'll find it in new locations, different timings, and new combinations. That means with all these things, the communities are the first responders, and it is the communities who needs to be empowered. Their resilience needs to be enhanced because they have to face all these challenges. That's where the community-based flood early warning system that we have been working, I would like to talk a little bit more about it. And this is also a UNFCCC award-winning initiative by showing impact on the ground. When I'm talking about community-based flood early warning system, what we have done, it is a very simple mechanism. As the water level rises in the river, a very simple device, with the telemetric system detects the water level and sends this information to the caretaker's house where they have the data upload unit. And from there, the caretaker just verifies whether it is the flood is coming, it's the real flood, or it is, that something is, the misinformation is coming there. So with this, he or she informs the downstream communities and also the local government. And that's where, we are able to send this information widely to the vulnerable communities. And we have followed this, the 4 steps of early warning that I don't have to mention, I think here. It's the risk knowledge and scoping, specifically working with the communities to find out the risk zones, risk areas, and then the community-based early warning and monitoring system that we establish at the local level. Dissemination and communication, that's where we again work with the communities to find out the dissemination and communication channel, the networking, to send the information at the local level. And also we bring in the local government here to work with them. Then the response capability and resilience, enhancing the resilience. We work together with the local line agencies like the Red Cross, the local governments to enhance the capacity. And in addition to this, with more than a decade experience working in community-based flood early warning system, we have also brought in the sustainability mechanism so that once the project phases out, the system does not, it still works on and the sustainability is there. We are talking about the financial, institutional, technological, and social sustainability mechanisms. Let me give some few examples of what we are doing very quickly. We work with the communities for risk scoping. That's why we say, the work we are doing is the entire package of early warning system. That's where only 20% is about the instrument that we will install, but rest of the 80% is all working with the communities and coming out with the solutions. So this is a simple way of doing the risk assessment, finding out low, moderate, high, and very high risk zones. Some of the very good examples and the success that we have been able to show is in 2017 in Ratu River. This is also a cross-border river between Nepal and India. That's where our system was able to send the information to the downstream, from Nepal to downstream communities, as you can see here, from Bardibas, Lalgarh to downstream in Bittamor, so that the communities got almost 8 hours of early warning and they were able to save their lives and livestock in India and also in Nepal. The other example is in the Khado River, again in Nepal, the Tarai region of Nepal, where our early warning was able to send information early morning at 5 a.m. when people were still sleeping. The alarm rang and they were alerted, and lives and livestock were able to save, whereas houses and farmlands were inundated. But people were able to evacuate on time, saving lives of the people. Then the another example is beyond the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. We have also reached in Malawi, in Africa, where we supported the government to apply for this UNDP-GEF project. And in 22 different sites, we have been able to support the government to establish this early warning system. And as you can see here, immediately the next, the year when the flood came, they were able to save lives and livelihood. So this is where we are working very closely with the local government, the communities, and we are also transferring the technology to different partners and different areas in our region. One of the sustainability mechanism that we ensured is the basket fund, where the mayor of the rural municipality Tilati was very active, and from the downstream municipalities, as you can see here, he was able to secure contribution from different municipalities and sustain this basket fund, which we put it in the cooperative, so that this basket fund is used by the communities, and they have their steering committee, and through a meeting every year, they use this basket fund for the caretaker's salary, but also to maintain the early warning system, the system that I have shown earlier, every year before the flood comes. So this is how we are able to work with the communities. And that is why, like together with the science, the modeling results and the forecast that comes, it's very important to integrate the local knowledge, because that's where they feel the responsibility. And once they feel the responsibility, then they act to it. Otherwise, just sending the information without telling them how to act on this information and to prepare themselves will not always work well at the local level. My last slide on some strategic contributions for resilience building, the early warning system at the local level involving the people will also bring in the Jesse inclusion. That's where we can work together with the communities, find out which household has children, people with disabilities, elderly people, and which is the rescue route that they can take, and where is the shelter zone. So ensuring equitable access to information and resources is very important. Then, together with the local communities, if we work together with them, then it is also helping to strengthen the local capacities for disaster preparedness, as I have mentioned, because we cannot always depend on the government. It's also the community's help is very much required, and the local knowledge that they gain from their ancestors are also very important for the early warning, building trust for participatory approaches. And overall, as also mentioned by Giriraj in the opening, that we are contributing to the Sendai framework and early warning for all. This is just an example of flood early warning system, but ICIMOD has also worked in bluff early warning systems, and also we are working on landslides together with the local government and the national government and the communities that we work on. Thank you very much. Over to you,
Thank you.
Giriraj.
Thank you, Dr. Neera. I hope I'm audible because of some travel in the train. So, very impressive presentation, really highlighting a comprehensive or a holistic risk management principles you have adapted, building on what the global uncertainties, and then you describe the climate extremes and how you co-design with the community early warning. I think it also very clearly brings out from your evidences is the collective partnership. Because without partnership from the local ownership by the community, the local government, you presented on the example of pre-financed agreement or the arrangement with the local government that inform proactively, because even we can send early morning 5 a.m. an alert, but then let's comes into the early action and the kind of pre-financed resources should be available. So that you have demonstrated highly. And I think the openness of the community interest is very, very important. Because that brings a better clarity on when the alert was given, what actions have been done by the government. I see from your presentation particularly for the participants to learn a kind of an SOPs. So is there any standard guidelines? I have seen anticipatory action. Hub has developed certain roadmaps and strategies. So people can share also, learn from the principles what ICIMOD has done. So please do share in the chat box any publications or link that can be of useful to the audience. So with that, let me move now to moderating the session by Deoraj Gurung. So I happen to work with him for a number of years. Very glad to see Dr. Deoraj Gurung will going to moderate this session. He's a chief scientist at the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, currently based in headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. Aga Khan has been demonstrating at a household level, particularly in the conflict and sensitive regions, in the fragile regions, So he has a number of initiatives focused on community preparedness and also bringing more participatory governance. And I believe the true essence of the Aga Khan is how we make a very resilient and safer cities and communities, and how these habitats can be much more resilient to future drought-prone or disaster-prone regions, like in Afghanistan, Syria, and Pakistan and India, they have demonstrated. So with that, let me ask Dr. Devaraj Gurung to lead the session with the experts with their introduction. Over to you, Dr. Devaraj.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kiriras. It has been a pleasure for me as well to be here in this gathering and moderate this session. Thank you also to Dr. Neera for setting this in very appropriately. I think this really provides an easy segue to the moderation session, because I think many of the things that we heard, it does look so simple when you hear somebody talking about a very successful case of the early warning system, but it really requires a very in-depth thinking, and also a very formalized, a very holistic approach. You really need to have a very good recipe for a successful project like the one that was discussed and delivered through the presentation by Dr. Neeraj Shrestha. So to help us understand the recipes, the elements of recipes, how do we put together to make this early warning system for all? I would like to underline the for all successful. I have with me three very eminent panelists. Let me first introduce them, and then we'll head to and deep dive into some of the elements that I just wanted to discuss on creating that recipe for a successful flood early warning system. So first off, I would like to introduce Shivangi Chabda, who is a head of program working for the Global Network of Civil Society Organizations for Disaster Reduction, in short, GNDR. She is a prominent figure in disaster reduction and climate change adaptation with over 2 decades of experience in DRR and climate change adaptation. She leads initiative in evidence-based advocacy, strategic partnership, and resource mobilization. Shivangi is dedicated to empowering local civil society organizations and promoting risk-informed development. She also serves as a global risk driver lead on food and water insecurity at GNDR. Shivangi's work is characterized by her commitment to positive change and impactful leadership in humanitarian efforts. Let me go ahead and introduce our second speaker, Manuel van der Mulhan. He is a global program manager for Plan International Switzerland. He is a dedicated global program manager at Plan International Switzerland since 2019. He has played a crucial role in the Zurich Flood Resilience Alliance, overseeing the implementation of flood protection projects in Central America and Southeast Asia. His expertise is in development cooperation backed by his advanced studies at ETS Zurich and his work with the Center for Development Environment at the University of Bern. His commitment to enhancing community resilience and disaster preparedness is evident in his impactful contribution to Plan International initiatives. The third speaker from Sri Lanka, Red Cross Society. Her name is Ganga Kriyavasan, head of program. Based in Colombo, he has previously worked as a manager for reporting, quality assurance, and focal point for anticipatory action at Red Cross Society in Sri Lanka. She has also had positions at the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and Practical Action Publishing, with a bachelor's degree in agriculture for University of Florida and master's degree for the University of Colombo. She has been actively involved in initiatives like climate resilient agriculture, disaster risk reduction, anticipatory actions, and many other things. So with this introduction, I would like to then address specific questions related to specific elements of the early warning system, and like to hear from our eminent speakers, panelists, on those elements. First, let me bring in Shivangi here. GMDR has championed the views from the frontline approaches for a very long time. So I just wanted to learn from her, how do you ensure that the community voices genuinely shape early warning systems and are not tokenized in the process? Meaning that how do we really bring in and let the community also have a say in the whole process of early warning system and design and implementation? Over to you, Shivangi.
Yeah, thank you, Devraj, and hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for giving this opportunity to GNDR to share some of their learnings from views from the front line, but also from early warning, localized early warning systems. So at GNDR, we recognize the meaningful inclusion of community voices and just not participation or just not being mere observers. But we feel and we kind of advocate that it is essential to build effective and trusted early warning systems. So the views from the front line is one of the approach which is designed specifically to avoid tokenism, as you said, Devraj, by placing local perspectives at the center of the risk and resilience planning. So we create that enabling environment for these communities to be able to take part in the decision-making process. So just not a consultation, but it is a collaborative effort which we infuse through this process. So just a little bit about VFL, which is views from the front line. It gathers the lived-in experiences of the at-risk communities, local CSOs, and local authorities to identify the gaps in understanding priorities and the capacities at the local level to deal with hazards, but also to really analyze the institutional capacities. So, but just more than just collecting the data, we ensure that the communities are also involved in analyzing the results. So when we gather the perspective on, say, same questions from local CSOs, local government, and local communities, we often find that they are on the different plateau and their perspectives are different. So that's where we start then kind of involving communities and local authorities, make them sit together to kind of analyze these results, co-define their priorities and co-design the solutions. So this joint process enables all stakeholders to align around common threats, understand root causes, and identify barriers to action. Now, from our example, in our current work in Indonesia and Philippines with 10 communities affected by volcanic eruptions and typhoons, we started again by listening to the communities themselves, especially women and local CSOs and the local government. And we asked about both formal and indigenous early warning systems and uncovered those barriers like limited institutional capacity, financial constraints, lack of inclusive decision-making structures, and often also lack of accessibility to the resources and the funding available at the local level. So what ensures their voices are not tokenized is that these insights are just not reported. They shape the design of these early warning systems and early action protocols themselves. They are at that stage right now where they have defined early action protocols. And Mindwell, as you said, that this is a very complex process, not as simple as I speak. It took almost like a year or 8 months or 9 months to really reach to consensus of how the early action protocol should look like with shifting power to the local communities and sitting equally on the same platform with the local government and local CSOs to make that decisions. So, and not leaving it to just few entities. So this also, of course, then includes lots of capacity building and advocacy efforts that bring these voices directly to the decision makers at the local level and national level. So it is a bottom-up approach, trying to also analyze at the national level what are those policies which enables this kind of an environment, and if there is a gap, how the national decision makers can come together to kind of bring the solutions based on these evidences. So GNDR works in that fashion. We bring these evidences, amplify the voices of the local communities, make sure that it is just not a consultative process, it is a collaboration which ensures that this community knowledge directly influences systems rather than being sidelined in top-down processes. And so far, I think we have been able to start looking at the national policies, trying to bring those evidences, at least in Indonesia and Philippines, where our current projects are, and they have started looking into it positively. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think there are many things to learn from your experiences, particularly the point also made by Dr. Anira Shrestha, that early warning system, when you look at it, there has been an understanding in the earlier sense that technical early warning system is very much a technical element or technical thing. But there has been, in a very recent time, there has been so many research that projects early warning system as more of a societal process than a technical investments or technical engagement. So I would like to move to another question. Before I bring in Manuel, I just wanted to go and speak to Ganga on the trust, community's trust. I guess community trust on an early warning system is such a critical element of whole early warning system process that if they indeed lose a trust on the technical or the systems or the whole process of informing them, and they lose the confidence on the system, I think we will not be able to not just implement, we will not be able to sustain further than that. So in this regard, I just wanted to hear from Ganga on Red Cross movement as a organization that we have understood has a very strong root in community action. What are some of the practical strategies to build trust and ownership among local communities to sustain early warning system over time? Over to you, Ganga.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, and greetings from Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. It's truly an honor to be a part of these important conversations today, representing Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. So we have the privilege of working closely with the communities across the country on disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness, and response. So, and as you said correctly, we strongly believe that the sustainable early warning systems can only be built on the foundation of community trust and ownership. So in Sri Lanka Red Cross, we learned that even the most sophisticated early warning technology will fail if the community isn't part of the system from the beginning. So let me share a few practical strategies that have worked for us on the ground. So first, we need to co-create the early warning systems with the communities. It's not for them, it's with them. So this means involving them in hazard mapping, selecting communication channels, and identify the most trusted local voices to disseminate the alerts. This can be maybe a school principal, a religious leader, or a youth volunteer. So this participation builds ownership. And also secondly, we prioritize local leadership and peer-to-peer learning. So through our community-based disaster risk management that we call CBDRM approach, we train volunteers from within the community who speak the same language, understand the culture, and already have the trust of their neighbors. So when the warning comes from someone you know, you are more likely to act on it. So that is another strategy. And then thirdly, we can ensure the system is inclusive and relevant to the everyday lives of the people. For example, if we take a landslide prone area, we can have visual alert flags and door-to-door campaigns, especially in places where mobile signals are not working. So or literacy rates are low. So we should also ensure that the women, persons with disabilities, and marginalized groups are part of the planning and drills. It's not we should not take them as beneficiaries, but as decision makers. So then they feel feel their inclusivity and their relevance into this approach. So and again we can they trust needs to be the trust needs to be built through the consistency and the follow-up. because the community need to see that the early warning system works. It's not just one during a drill or during a disaster, but it's regularly, it should work. So that should be consistent and follow up. So that's why we need to link warning systems with regular preparedness drills, community meetings, and seasonal warning campaigns. So that's just another one. And finally, we should celebrate their resilience, because the recognition is very important, like publicly honoring local responders or showcasing community initiatives at national forums. That helps communities to feel proud and invested in their systems. For example, at Red Cross, we have initiatives such as volunteer appreciation programs and honoring of community honoring of community heroes, both in district and national level. So this type of approaches create that ownership, and they are proud of what they are doing. So in summary, the strength of an early warning system is not just in its sirens or software, but it's in the human connections behind it. So when communities feel that the systems belongs to them, that their voices matters, they don't just listen to the warning, so they just become the part of the warning. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganga. I think one thing is coming very strongly across the presentation and the discussions here, that community really needs to be in the front and center of the early warning system process. Ganga, I really like the term "with them, not for them." I mean, working with the community, not for the community. The importance of peer-to-peer support, peer-to-peer learning. And also, I think what really stood out also is the recognizing their contribution in terms of implementation as well as sustaining through some sort of incentivized process. That's a very critical to my understanding. Let me go now across to Manuel. Manuel, I had a fortune to witness and interact with the Plan International team while I was working with ICIMOD in Nepal. I visited learned their, visited their sites, their work in some of the flood-prone district in Nepal. One thing really stood out is their approach is very grounded. Your approach is very grounded, and they really work very closely with the communities. I also, after having moved from ICIMOD to Aga Khan Agency for Habitat as a global team, I also understand the role of leaderships in the global offices in terms of devising the way that the programs are run on the ground. I think our role as a head office global team is to really support program teams on the ground, adopt global good practices, and also help in mobilizing their fund. I just wanted to learn from you on two aspects. One, how can community-led early warning system empower the younger lots, children, as well as for the fact that they are the active agent of change rather than just a recipient of information. The second thing that I wanted to learn from your perspective is, as a global program lead, how do we balance local customization with the needs for consistent, replicable approaches that can attract sustained funding and policy support? Over to you, Manil. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the questions. And I'm glad to hear you had that interaction in Nepal. And indeed, I think this work at the communal level is to some extent at the heart of what we do. I have prepared a short presentation. It's only 5 slides, and we'll try to respond to your questions within this presentation and refer to it. So if you allow me to share my screen.
Yes, please.
I hope you can see that.
Yes.
Yep.
If you can put in a slide.
Yeah.
Presentation mode.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, bear with me. Like I said, it's only 5 minutes, 5 slides. So this is an example of a work that we do of what we call or have called in the intercommunal early warning system. It's a work that originated in 4 communities in 2 departments of El Salvador, but was gradually extended to cover as many as 22 communities across 3 departments over the time frame of the project, by neighboring communities raising interest to be involved in the project. So it has created some kind of spillover effect. And yeah, here this shows you a little bit what the region looks like. So as one key ingredient for success, if you will, it was very important to work on capacity enhancement. So for all these 22 communities, what we did was to establish evacuation routes, implement evacuation drills, both at the community but also at the school level. Either build new or upgrade existing community shelters, usually community houses that's been we-designed to fit that purpose. Provide first aid trainings again to the local schools as well as to the community as a whole. The necessary equipment such as speakers, pluviometers, and community maps, and have these family and response plans, community response plans, and local school response plans. So trying to do that at a very at multiple levels. And in each community, we have a team of about 20 people split across 4 teams who have different responsibilities. And again, the same applies at the school level and at the community level. And the different responsibilities that they have, they basically split into different teams that work on monitoring and early warning, evacuation, security, first aid, and temporary shelters. And the idea is that each one has their own set of responsibilities, but once it has gone through the monitoring and early warning team and needs to activate the evacuation and security team, then it goes to the first aid team and finally to the temporary shelter, so that they all work in harmony with each other. And of course, apologies, this might be a little bit loaded slide, but what it shows is basically an example of one watershed where you have 5 communities in the upper and mid basin and 7 communities in the lower basin area. And what we did was basically install the necessary equipment, so weighing gauges in the upper and mid basin area and a so-called traffic light scale system. So depending on the water level, the local response team can see when it's time to evacuate based on green, yellow, and red indications. They also have the maps and evacuation route and speaker system. What was important here to keep in mind is, of course, risk awareness. So these local response teams and communal response team, they're all trained on risk awareness. For example, knowing when a landslide could cause a flash flood in the lower basin area. I mentioned the equipment. Something else that's very important to mention is the communication system. So there's basically this network of local observers who are connected with each other, but also with civil protection and the Observatory of Natural Hazards, which is under the ministry responsible for impact-based forecast, and of course have teams who know how to respond. So and we're able to be activated and issue alerts and evacuate. To your question, I mean, something else maybe to mention here that is not seen on the screen, but in addition to the Ministry of Environment and Civil Protection, of course, it was important to work with the Ministry of Education. I mentioned that these committees are also trained at the school level, so that in the long term, this gets taken up as curriculum at the subnational or even national level, which is something we did achieve in another country, not yet in El Salvador. But of course, that's only part of the story. So, and you can only achieve so much in terms of impact at scale at the community level. So what was important to us was also to establish that link to the policy level. And we try to achieve that through establishing a joint work agreement between the 2 main institutions responsible for this field at the national level, which is Civil Protection and Observatory of Natural Hazard Risk under the Ministry of Environment, ensuring collaboration, long-term planning, and that these two institutions use their resources efficiently and effectively, and produce, or we help produce, user-friendly material that makes forecast information accessible to the public. Yeah, and then maybe as a last slide, some of the lessons learned you can see here. What this has shown is that these trained committees enhance timely response, and of course the communities gain from improved access to impact-based forecasts. It was crucial that we had this in the previous presentation, that there's a high level of trust, which of course with our long-standing presence in the community we have built, but also established that trust between the government and the communities, and make sure the institutions have the capacity to convert rather technical information into clear and actionable targeted messages. And maybe as a last point, why this was prepared for flood preparedness, essentially it is potentially adaptable to other hazards and has been tested at the community level. And I think also maybe to briefly respond to your second question, I think as a next step, something that we can also learn from similar initiatives in other countries is to build some kind of community of practice for knowledge sharing between DRR practitioners in the country, yeah, you can still have local differences, but at the same time have a common learnings and common approach that works at the global level. Thank you. I'll stop sharing my sheet.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. I think that's a very good example of how you could use community to help in terms of building a really community-based early warning system. The very idea of community, using community as a sensor, trying to use community to help in terms of data gathering, not just data gathering, but also trying to build that capacity in terms of creating the local capacity to respond whenever there is an early warning system. This really, I could really reflect very closely with your presentation, because we, as an agency for Habitat, has also been working very closely with the communities. We also spend a lot of time in terms of creating that capacity at the community level through training of a community emergency response team, CERT, and also search and rescue team, SART, in terms of if there is any information early warning system that reaches them, how do they work with the community and prepare them to respond appropriately. The second thing that I could understand from your presentation is also the engagement, the importance of engagement, multi-level, and also multiple organizations in terms of bringing a case of very successful early warning system. Across all the three speakers, I could sense that a common thread that runs through the presentation and the talk is the trust that you need to build with the community, not just with the community, with the local government. The second thing, common thread that runs across, is the capacity for the community to absorb and act on the thing. And I really like the idea of building the community practice for being able to bring examples and cases on one single platform and facilitate that exchange and sharing of these information. Here again, we talked about the system as such. Now let's dive a little bit and delve in how do we ensure longer term sustainability. So here I just wanted to bring in again Sivangi back on the hot seat. And let me press a little bit further on the question of inclusivity. You already talk about many things in the first space: active participation, joint process, local communities, local government, and so on. But here I just really wanted to zoom down and try to understand very specific ways to integrate gender equality, social inclusion in the community-led early warning system, ensure the most marginalized are truly reached and engaged. Over to you, Sivangi.
Yeah, thanks, Devraj, for that question. So from JNDR perspective,
Just
Giri, can you please mute? Okay, Shivangi, over to you. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. So I was saying that from GNDR perspective, almost all in our interventions or approaches, we understand exclusion as a structural barrier, and it is just not lack of participation. What it therefore means for us is that we actively and by design include identification of this marginalized groups such as women, people with disabilities, ethnic minorities, elderly persons, and gather their perspectives on risk and resilience or early warnings in this case. So one of the key questions that we have asked these groups of people is that what are the factors that prevent inclusion, but also what are the factors that facilitate inclusion. So we get kind of a resolution as to what are those barriers or what are those good practices within the community which enables also a very inclusive decision making process. I just shared the global report on localized early warning system, which we carried out early this year, where 88 countries participated, and most of them were the local CSOs from some 400 and local CSOs participated. And most of these groups of marginalized communities have been recognized as a passive recipients of early warning information. They are not active, how do you say, active participant or active, doer in the process. So that was one of the reflections that we have. And for people with disabilities, we found that from those findings that they do not have even information or information that befits them in that sense to address, to have those information or to have those early warning systems which they can decode or which they can understand it very well. Again, back to my example from Indonesia and Philippines, we began engaging with local women groups, youth, and persons with disabilities to understand their specific experiences with existing early warning systems or lack thereof. And this ensured that the barriers that they face, such as inaccessible warning formats, lack of trust in local authorities, or gendered roles, that limits access, not only access to information and resources, but also in the decision-making process. So in those particular projects, I think we were quite intentional in making them as a protagonist to kind of develop and co-design the early warning systems, to develop those early action protocols, and brought them in the forefront to be able to lead that process. So our approach is rooted in community-led analysis, where we facilitate these inclusive dialogues that bring these groups into the center of the planning process. To move from insight to impact, we have also learned our lessons, and some of them, if I can share, is that co-designing of early warning protocols with marginalized groups as active participants and not just informants, as I mentioned before. I think that's very important for us, and we have to kind of, be advocating for that. Adapt communication channels and formats to local realities, including using local languages, oral and visual tools, and trusted community messengers. Also invest in capacity strengthening for marginalized communities so that they can lead, not just receive warnings. And we ensure that the local governance structures are sensitized and held accountable for inclusive planning and implementation. So these are some of those insights that we have got through this process to make this localized early warning systems more inclusive. I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivangi. I think that's a very insightful response. I could clearly see your emphasis on having the community members and the vulnerable group, not just as a passive recipient, but rather an active doer. I think that speaks really sends a very strong message in terms of making the system, early warning system process very inclusive. And I also hear that if you want a very inclusive process, inclusive system, the entire decision-making process needs to be inclusive. You need to have them on the board, across the table, and listen to what they and how they would like to design for their own good. For that reason, I think co-designing is one way to make this thing very inclusive. The other thing that I heard from your presentation is making the system locally contextualized, because there could be very different things at different places, different level, the way they do things, the language, the customs, and everything. So I think making the early warning system very localized contextually is very important. Thank you for that. Now let me bring in again Ganga here.
Sorry,
Although the
Devraj, to disturb for you for a minute. I think we need to quickly wrap up the session also.
okay,
It's a time is, yeah.
okay, this is the
Yeah.
last question. So although the main action happens at the ground zero, I mean, most of the things happens at the ground zero, but I think to really to deliver a successful program at the grassroots, it requires coming together of many actors at multiple levels. So in this regard, I just wanted to ask you, what is the role of partnership between local actors, national agencies, global network, in order to enhance the impact of resilience of community through community-led early warning system? Thank you. Over to you, Ganga.
Yeah, I don't know how long I have live. It's 6:28. I'll try to speak quickly. Yeah, thank you. So then in this, I'd like to start by saying, so the no early warning system is effective in isolation. So we need to strengthen its strength lies in the connection between people, institution, and knowledge. So the local level is very important. So that's why we need to partnership with local actors such as village communities, grassroots NGOs, and Red Cross volunteers may become essential. So they ensure that the warnings are not only received but understood, trusted, and acted upon. And also the national agencies we need, on the other hand, because we need to bring technical resources, official mandates, and access to scientific data. So whether it's through meteorological departments, disaster management center, or social protection systems. So that's why we need partnerships with local actors to ensure that data is translated into timely, context-sensitive warnings and anticipatory actions. For example, we work with our work with on anticipatory action is deeply rooted in collaboration with the national level agencies, such as department and EMC, and likewise. So, but we must also look beyond our borders in the global network, such as working with the IFR International Federation as Red Cross, and then Anticipation Hub, even in the region platforms play a transformative role. So they bring innovation, global good practices, and funding mechanisms. So they amplify the local voices in global dialogue. So it helps us to standardize tools that communities and national actors can adapt. So let me give a brief example. When we are in the process of developing community-based early action protocol for floods, it wasn't done by Red Cross alone. We work with the national government partners and also the NGOs working in the areas, and validated to the local communities. And technical support we received by global experts from Anticipation Hub and also and IFRC Climate Center. And then so tomorrow it will help us to move from reaction or response to anticipation. So that is how we have integrated all three levels in one place. So partnership, and again, it's partnerships are not just value added; they are the foundation of resilience. Thank you.
So thank you all the speakers. I just don't want to summarize because I have been summarizing at every panel session. So I just want to thank all the panelists here and also the participants who are kind enough to listen in. I would like to hand it over to Niranga, please. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Devraj, for your good moderation for this panel discussion. And I would like to thank all the panelists and then Adira especially for this keynote presentation and everything. Next webinar, now you can see in the chat, we have posted. The next webinar is on the 29th July based on the hydropower resilience for the early warning. That is our next webinar. I hope you can join for this webinar series as well. This will move on one by one till December. As you can see at the beginning, our host given you the link where you can see the past records as well as the future webinars as well. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hope to see you all in the next webinar. Okay, bye.